Hello, everyone. I'm Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspired Show. And today, my guest is quite an unusual person, David Solomon. David's purpose is to discover, improve, and teach real magic by building the best mystery school in the world. He's a channel and a magician with training in multiple traditions by masterful human, divine, and extraterrestrial teachers and lineages, including the Atlantean school of Damanhur. His experience of over 222 miracles, synchronicities, and Siddhis of rapid healing, manifestation, materialization, weather control, telekinesis, and other phenomena led him to write Magic is Real: How to Create Reality, Manifest Miracles, and Make Spirituality Fun Again. The system of open source magic he uses is intended to support divine embodiment and the building of temples of Thoth, Lakshmi, and Aphrodite, as well as launching the future city of Atlantis Reborn in 2041. David teaches workshops on third eye opening, astral travel, channeling, causal-plane 5D soul healing and manifestation, past life integration, and life purpose alignment. Wow, David, thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's really delightful to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, how did you figure out that you can channel information?
Wow, that is a question which I have answered in multiple chapters for both Magic is Real and the next 3 books in the series. But to be concise in the reply for just a nugget here and also a bit of a practical path for anybody who is curious about becoming or strengthening their channeled abilities, I feel there's a left and a right brain approach and a whole brain approach. So I started with the right brain approach. I was going through the first 2 months of healing after a back-to-back near-death experience, 2 near-death experiences. And there were times when my ego left my being and I would just kind of zone out and talk. And journaling is great, and I have like a really handy Bluetooth that I wear often, and I neutralize the EMFs at night, but I would essentially turn this on and talk. And it used to be just thoughts about life or plans or goals or an affirmation list. And then it shifted to things about business models. And at some point it was about higher level spiritual perspectives and messages, and lessons related to the things that I was going through and the things I was thinking about at the time. And after a few of these, I started naming and organizing the recordings. And after like 55 recordings, I brought somebody on my team. Her name is Eve. She's really, really fabulous. We've known each other about 4 years now. And I said, I think these could become a book. Can you listen to them? And if they're good, can you please help transcribe and edit them? So she did, and she said she felt goosebumps go up her spine. She sent them to friends. They felt this powerful activation. And I thought, okay, I'm going to replicate what happened, but do it more intentionally. And now at the present day, and this is more of the left brain integration or root chakra groundedness, if there's a certain topic that I feel called to serve in, or that I need personally, as much experience and knowledge and stuff as people say I have, I'm a student like everybody else. And even when we're creating planets as many levels above an ascended master, there's things to learn. So when people request something, then often something channeled will come up. So I have a workshop series in abundance, one coming up on healing and building healing skills, healing trauma, things with the chakras, and a general magical curriculum that has things on spells, astral travel, psychic protection, kind of just a good foundational course. And if I need to hear something, I know how to meditate and shift my brainwave state to theta or delta or gamma if I have the time. And I'm really aligned depending on what's needed, and then something comes through. And so there's several different purposes for it, but whether it's personal or to be shared, and sometimes they're both. But there's the preview of the 5 chapters of content about that.
Wow. So you think that, using magic is our birthright. Why is that?
Well, in life, we grow up and we learn certain skills. And it seems like most people, at least in first world countries, learn a language well, learn how to walk well, learn how to take care of their physical body, learn how to support themselves in a way where they can support their family, and learn a bunch of other skills, usually skills that have value that they get paid for. And there's all these skills we learn, and we found from some people like Tim Ferriss deconstructing skills that you can learn them more quickly. And we've learned from Wim Hof, who has, last I checked, 19 Guinness records on affecting his own autonomic nervous system, that you don't need 40 years of training to do that, as Tomo meditation had in many contexts where it was taught. And we learned from Roger Bannister that you can run a 4-minute mile, and then once he did it, so many other people did. So taking raising the bar, or even removing the bar, and integrating that with everything out there about ascended masters, everything out there about how consciousness affects material reality, I feel that it's our birthright to know what we're capable of, and to have the option, and ideally a good option, which is one of the reasons I teach, to learn that set of skills. Now, that's the practical side, but on the visionary side, can you imagine what the world would be like if people were awake enough and spiritually mature, evolved, developed enough to be able to shift into a state of oneness, or even work from 4D, which is the astral energetic in my system, or the 5D, the causal, karmic, holographic level, and manifest or affect the weather or affect energy bodies. And the ability to heal any wound more and more rapidly as you level up in skill, the ability to reverse age, the ability to affect the weather if needed, and of course if ethical, and do so many other things, would raise our standard of living massively. And this stuff is so accessible. There's so many traditions and systems I've seen and studied in, and while I have personal opinions of certain ones are better than others and certain ones have positives and negatives depending on the goals and the context, this stuff is really accessible. And I feel that it should at least be presented as a path of human development, just like there's so much psychology and self-help out there, with the difference being with magic, there isn't yet an organized body of research on legit safe practices that's really big. You have their schools and their traditions and the reasons for being mystery schools and not being mystery schools, but in psychology and psychiatry and behavioral science and biochemistry and neurology and neurofeedback and brain scan science, you have meta-analyses of dozens and hundreds of studies that talk about, if you want a certain effect in life, here's what the cause should be. Here's what meditating 15 minutes a day did for a group of 3,000 people. Here's what an hour a day did. And having something be our birthright is more than just healing ourselves, reverse aging. It's about, we have these massive world problems, and we have this system of managing resources called the global economy. And with COVID, as of this recording, we're seeing the government's delaying tax collection and spending a ton of money. Is the system as tight as we thought, or is it more complex? And I don't claim to be an economist, so I'm not going to have an official stance on that matter. I am helping somebody write a book called The Smart Economy that includes consciousness. But say as humanity, we want to regrow the rainforests, or we want to reform the glaciers, or we want to do what 900 mayors or governors submitted, I think, to the UN, that we need to address climate change as like a #1 priority. If it takes economies and politics and all those systems too long to do the change we need to live sustainably and healthily for humans and non-humans on this planet, we need to have a level of empowerment where we can band together or combine our powers. And even if the internet shut off, even if other things happen, communicate telepathically, combine our abilities, and achieve these massive feats. And I've seen enough examples of those things being done at smaller scales. And I know enough about group fields and amplification that I believe it's absolutely possible. And while I'm grateful for anybody else who steps up for initiatives, one of the things I care to do is lead people into building a collective where we can do these types of things for the benefit and evolution of humanity, at least the people who want it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a strong believer in our capacity, in our brain's capacity to do all these things you mentioned. But look, again, I'm going to be a little bit cynical here. And, the guys in power don't want us to evolve spiritually and be awakened, because then we're going to see through everything their lies and the way they are trying to control us. And I'm going to leave it like that. I'm not going to go deeper there. So why do you think we lost the power of belief in magic?
Well, there's 4 reasons, and I'm going to go deep into one, a little deep into 2, and I'm just going to mention the other 2. So the 2 quick answers, J.K. Rowling actually did a fabulous job in this when she had Pottermore release A History of Magic. And that's like the textbook for people in Hogwarts, but it is written for our world. And in it, she breaks down the Inquisition and the elements of the Inquisition where if you accuse a relative or a villager of being a witch and they're found guilty, which most people were, you get their land, which is a big deal in 17th to 18th century or 16th. She broke down, or the author she directed broke down The Hammer of the Witches, or Malleus Maleficarium, which was a book completely invented with all these distortions from several sources I've heard that depicted natural healers and shamans and medicine women and medicine men as these evil demonic beings. And so that just led to a bit of a trend and a stigma. So that's one simple reason. Another simple reason is media and movies can take advantage of our systems, our neurology, our biochemistry, our responses, our fear response. And, as we see in the mainstream media, fear sells. So if you talk about something supernatural, you have certain groups that still believe inquisitional level stuff. I mean, anti-witch laws or anti-witch burning laws, witch burning laws, I think were just repealed in this last generation, and be like 100 years after anything happened, more than that. So when you have all these movies about magic is bad, magic is dangerous, you touch the Ouija board and the walls will ooze slime and something will crawl out and be all evil, like that's misinformation if it's talking about a field as a whole. So there's that media fear and the media ridicule. Now, a counter to the first is just like with the LGBT civil rights movement or the Black civil rights movement, or African American, depending on individuals' preferences, where we as a culture had a stigma, which is reflected in our media and our social behavior differently in different areas, but in general, there's a lot of Disney cartoons, which I don't think they would want anybody to see nowadays, that had depictions like that. And then as civil rights and tolerance progressed, we realized our caricatures and stereotypes of certain groups. I grew up Jewish, so that group is included and still is, along with many others. We realized the stereotyping is, it's baseless, and we stop it. So that is slowly happening. When I was first studying, when I was 14, I heard the Wiccan religion was officially recognized in the military, which I thought was kind of cool. So those are the two short reasons. The two longer reasons, I don't want to take up all the time on this, so I'll just plant seeds, and if you're curious, you can ask me more. For a long time, for millennia, to be the ancient wizard voice, if you learn how to affect other people's bodies, if you learn how to affect the behavior of animals or weather, and you're not mature or spiritually developed, that is like handing hand grenades out, or worse. So keeping mystery schools mysterious was essential, and including taboos to drive people away from studying if they were, you could say, superficial, or if they didn't look deeply, or if they were in fear, so they wouldn't react in fear and use magic if they learned it. So there are all these walls, and you can borrow from the ancient martial arts kind of story of, you go to your dojo, you get denied, you stay on the porch, the next day you get denied, the next day you get denied. After 3 days, they let you in. And we saw this in Doctor Strange in 2016. So the third principle is a safeguard, and there's reasons why that safeguard is being lifted. Ask me if you're curious, I can go into it. And I think the fourth reason is Damanhur's version of human history. And I know many traditions and spiritual traditions have theirs, but just to reference one I find favorable. In Damanhur's version of human history, humanity, we collectively lost a magical battle against some very higher forces. And some of the consequences, I guess, of our surrender to stay alive and exist as humans was surrendering certain abilities. And a lot of these were beyond our five sense abilities. Those are the four main reasons. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, if you can go back a little bit into, or deeper into the why you're gonna lift that, gate or threshold, and why is accepted it right now.
So reducing a stigma happens when people become informed. So if there's a family and that family is homophobic, and then somebody in that family comes out, and that family also happens to be loving and supportive, they experience cognitive dissonance, and they can't be homophobic and say their relative is whatever words that would be previously used, and their minds changed from personal experience. So direct personal experience is a very easy way, and right as I say that, I have a 3:33 alarm that wasn't supposed to go off on Tuesdays, but it did. So direct experience like that. I did not set that alarm today, I promise. That's nice, and that was obviously very minor. I'm not levitating cats or anything on screen right now. So when you have a direct experience and it is not scary and or enough to believe what you see was real, and hopefully you have some framework that at least allows for curiosity, that can open minds. Do you want to hear more? I can give 17 more because I'm a big fan of this stuff. I can give a couple though if you want.
Okay, a couple would do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Another one is it's very empowering. You know, as I've learned to heal myself, I had chronic pain for 10 years. I had a lot of different struggles and personality issues and things that I had to apologize for, and misfortunes in life of I don't want to say every nature, but of many natures. And my research to stop or cure those, to not keep needing to see, you know, all these healers, all these coaches, led me to learn more. And there is a saying in one of my healer schools called "the wound is the gift," that if we experience a wound or a trauma, our process of learning from that, adapting from that, developing from that, builds our character and builds our skill in a certain way. And then if it's right for us to choose to give it to others, we can. And the other example is, the other thing I'd say is, this is why I incarnated. You know, when I was 5, I was obsessed with magic, more so than just fantasy. And I have very clear memories of many past lives, when I chose to incarnate, when I was going through the tunnel and going through the veils, when I was in the womb, when I was born, when my cord was cut, umbilical at least. And I have memories that are clear as a memory in this life, that are quite expansive beyond this human incarnation. And so I know, just like, you know, we scheduled from 3 to 4 p.m. Pacific for this interview originally, and that was our intention for this time. And as a soul, could say as an immortal soul, I chose for the however many years of this incarnation, the intention for that time to be discovering, improving upon, and teaching the real magic of this world.
Beautiful, thank you. I listened to a discussion recently about 3D and 5D, and in fact that we can transition from one to the next without going through the 4th dimension. Is that true? And usually, how can we increase our body vibration to go to a higher dimension?
For sure. So in answering you, I'm answering to a general audience, and I encourage anybody who's watching or listening to customize what I'm about to share to your level of understanding or ability. I'm going to share a relatively advanced response that might take unpacking for beginners, but that unpacking, that discovery, will help them level up. And anybody who might consider themselves intermediate or advanced in these skills will gain a lot too, significantly. So I feel the 3D plane is, you know, matter, time, and space. The energies of electromagnetism and a few other, you know, non-physical energies. 4D is the astral energetic, and here, you know, the word energy, it's a synonym, and I'm not a fan of synonyms, but, you know, Reiki energy, parts of biofield energy, your chakras, your cords, things like that. And 5D, you know, I mentioned earlier, the quantum, the holographic, the karmic. So when people reach out to me on my website on Magical Golden Age, they ask about this stuff a lot, and my response is always the same. You can manifest much more higher and much more quickly from 5D than 4D or 3D. You know, if you want to build a temple and all you do is 3D, you have to do work, get money, coordinate supplies, coordinate people, and build a temple. From 4D, you can be empathically and psychically led to the right types of people, and your intuition can help everything, including the financial part, move ahead more quickly. You can make sure the vibes on the construction site and all the administration related are high and positive and powerful and loving and charged, and things can go more quickly and smoothly. But if you want to build a temple, you do it from 5D, you visualize the temple and somebody announces they're building it, and they build it, and they're excellent in all those skills, and you don't even have to lift a finger after you set the intention. And if you're a master magician, that intention takes, as the founder of Mind Valley once said, 17 seconds or less. And if you're an adept. One way I would define that word, because it's good to quantify, levels just for healthy comparison, maybe 5 to 10 hours. And as you lower down the skill, you need more 5D work to make things happen. So at least appearing in the 3D. So the approach that I use and that I recommend is to work on all of them with investing as much time in 5D as is appropriate. And the word appropriate is really key. I learned from a really, really good teacher and a friend, Justin Fairman of the Flow Mastery Institute with Jackie Nechtel, that if you have a limiting belief, that will hamper and hinder your manifestation. And I would add to that if you have a chakra block or a deep internal self-doubt or self-worth topic, that will hinder the energy, that will hinder the manifestation inertia, and it might take you more time, or it might not even be possible for you to manifest what you're manifesting. So if you want to manifest somebody giving you, a beautiful new Tesla, but you deep down believe you're not worth it, or that, Teslas are scary, or whatever, I think Teslas are awesome, I love them, then that manifestation either won't happen, or there'll be issues with it, or it'll take a really long time. So it's always good to bring in the rational, and it's always good and essential to do the inner work so the 5D manifestations flow. I think checking in 3D and 4D is also essential. If you want to build a temple on a historic protected site and you want that to be raised, you can just know in the 3D that the likelihood of that happening, if there's a lot of people who want the historic site to stay the same, 3D, there's a huge block. Astrally, energetically, you could feel into that space. Say it's, a block of concrete that is on sale for a very reasonable price. You could check energetically, wow, this place has to be cleansed. If I want to manifest here, there's all this dark energy from whatever, and the projects can go poorly. So you can leapfrog that if you're skilled enough in the 5D to visualize and include the energetic within it. But just like, doing one backflip on a trampoline with 2 people holding your arms and legs helping you is very different from doing a backflip on a balance beam 40 feet above the mats. Those 2 different things are different skills, and both can be learned, and both you can have proficiency in, and it's appropriate to only do what will be effective and safe, including in magic, because some things can backfire on the 3D, even though we would learn from them. So I really always recommend the approach of spiritual growth as a prerequisite to magic. And one of the reasons I care to teach how I teach is a lot of the old secrets that are get out without the safeguards, or without the safeguards being taught well. So people will go and seek power and then mess themselves or other people up. If you are a responsible martial arts teacher, you don't train anybody. If somebody has a major substance and a major violence issue, then you shouldn't train them how to hurt other human beings, even in the name of self-defense. So there's all these martial arts videos and techniques out there. There's all these magical techniques out there. So I feel I feel a responsibility and an ability to teach in a proper, appropriate way that includes the safeguards and effectiveness. A slightly better, but still not great martial arts teacher could teach, a normal human being how to defend themselves if they can't calm something down psychologically, spiritually, energetically, yet not teach them how to punch properly. And so that person might punch and break their thumb, even though, they maybe needed to punch that person so they didn't get stabbed, as opposed to a really good martial arts teacher who would make sure, no, the student, punches with the knuckles with an aligned fist properly, or ideally uses the palm of their hand, which is generally safer for the person doing the strike. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you. So along the same lines of getting help from the entities around us, before we start a project, before we start anything which is worthwhile achieving, would you encourage people to ask for help for, let's say, the angels or the energy entities which are around them and waiting to help?
I think most angels are always great to work with. Doreen Virtue is an excellent teacher who talks about this. She has a great book that I love and felt a lot of synchronicities with, and had way more number codes like 1111, 2222, 33333. Those boosted a lot after listening to her book the first time. So she's a great teacher for angels. I work with them a bit, and I have certain reasons of practicality why I don't work with them a lot now. But in general, yeah, I mean, a human being, they say we have more bacterial cells in us than human cells, and we're surrounded by microbes, we're surrounded by life. It's a symbiotic relationship if we live sustainably. And so the non-physical entities and spirit beings out there exist, but yet you're right, you do want to be intentional. You know, asking any spirit that can help, or the most powerful spirit, or offering something to whoever will give your, you know, big wild request a thumbs up, is kind of like going to the worst part of the worst city you can think of and asking you know, for an aspirin, no matter what it looks like, and taking it, you know. So there's ways to be stupid about this, and there's ways to get, I'd say, unlimited free abundant support. Now, one qualifier I'd offer, and this is more for people who I feel would be at a beginner level, is, maybe intermediate folks too, if you say ask Archangel Michael, very, very popular being, for help in a certain setting, and you believe you're worthy and deserving, and you even believe that he, you know, can or would help you, that might not be in your highest good. You know, for example, I was giving my partner a piggyback ride a few years ago, and then I started to run, and it was really fun until we both fell on my shoulder. And I waited to go to the ER for an hour and a half because I tried to heal myself on my own. And then I called a nurse friend, and we really looked at it. It was like, okay, there's obviously no internal bleeding, but this is dislocated for sure. I got to go to the ER. But after that, I healed myself twice as fast as the Stanford surgeons thought I would heal. And I live near Stanford, so it was easy to see them. Now, if I prayed and asked for an instant healing like that, I've had two teachers who healed a shattered wrist or ankle in seconds. And one was the #1 Reiki master in the US, so he said. And I wonder, like, if I asked Archangel Michael from the bottom of my heart for instant healing, would he have done it? And I'd like to think retroactively, no. What I learned, and the wound, the gift, the skills that waiting period kind of made me develop, or required me to develop if I wanted to achieve a faster healing, were that my prayers aren't answered. And so most of my prayers, when I choose to pray or feel called to, always have the asterisk of whatever is best for my highest self and my overall life goals, not looking for a quick fix, but also recognizing perceived limitations at the time and asking for support to help transcend them.
Yeah. You mentioned miraculous healing several times. Is that really miraculous, or is just our power of healing ourselves through, you know, the power of our mind and in the intention?
So the miraculous healings I'm talking about, I haven't mentioned them on this interview so far. But in my book, and I have his permission to write this and talk about it, my dad was on the operating table, and the kidney doctor, the nephrologist, visited my mom and I when we were in the waiting room and said he could die. It would be hours of surgery. He would definitely need dialysis for months, possibly for life. And he just wanted to prepare us. So he left, went in the elevator, and at the time I was in college, and my mom wanted space, so I gave her space, and I opened up my computer to make it look like I was doing homework, because I was a bit self-conscious. I think I was 19. And I just knew how to do it. And so I just shifted, and I just saw what seemed like his kidneys and all the internal organs nearby flowing with a glittery, silvery, sparkly, perfect substance. And the doctor's saying he's perfectly fine. And, you know, time going by and him not being on dialysis. That took about 5 to 7 minutes, but I completely lost track of 3D time and space. It was all that vision and the conviction of the truth of it. Another 6-7 minutes after that, the same kidney doctor comes out of the elevator. My mom starts freaking out, reasonably so. I had some hot chocolate, and he's like, good news. Larry's kidneys started mysteriously working again, and we're sewing him up. And we're going to do dialysis on a precautionary basis, but he definitely won't need it for life, and almost definitely won't need it for months. that I consider to be pretty miraculous. JoeDispenza, I have other personal examples, but just to show how widespread this is, Dr. JoeDispenza talked about a woman who went to one of his retreats and had such bone degradation in her jaw that, if I'm remembering properly, she couldn't even get a bone graft to fix it or to anchor in screws. She went to his retreat. In her visualization, she saw a dog's jaw, of all things. And within, I think, 2 weeks, all the bones and tissue in her jaw regenerated. She didn't get 80 stem cell injections or anything like that. That's pretty miraculous. There's so many examples throughout history, and I have a lot of others again for myself, and I can mention a few other scientist type people who have them. But that on its own is worth learning magic for, in my opinion.
Yes, I'm familiar with Dr. JoeDispenza, and my wife attended one or two of his events, and we listened to his workshops and read his books, and indeed, it's kind of miraculous and very interesting what's happening during these workshops. Are you doing, or do you do this type of miraculous healing during your workshops as well?
So, if you remember what I mentioned earlier about something being right to be done, just to be concise with that whole thing, I'll say karmically permitted, even though I believe karma isn't the concept of how karma works can change. I'll just say that because it's a kind of a higher level initiation topic to say properly. But if it's karmically appropriate, yes. Generally, I fine-tune my workshops for large audiences so I can support many groups of people. And focusing on one individual usually doesn't happen. Now, I do one-on-one healing, I do one-on-one support, and I do group healing and support. And so anybody interested in that can reach out to me through magicalgoldenage.com/mentoring or youtube.com/magicisreal or Instagram Sorcerer David. And the links are probably out of this video, so just for convenience there. And I find that's best. Now, I might on occasion build such a strong healing vibe that a miraculous healing to people in my workshops occurs. I think the more people who attend, the more likely that will be for the amplification. But my primary intention is to teach. And I believe that while one miraculous healing would be awesome, in training 100,000 people how to do that would be even more so. And yes, both together are ideal. So when it's karmically appropriate, it'll happen. And that is not a dodge. There's a lot of people who talk about why not show off flashy magic. And my favorite response by the same Reiki master person, whose name was Jeffrey, he said, actually, I'm sorry, my acupuncturist Adam Ottman said, Pilot Baba, a man who was in like a vacuum sealed sphere, no food, no air, no water for over a day, dematerialized his body when the skeptical society that was, came to witness his powers went out for a drink. And then he rematerialized right before they came in, and a disciple said, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "Who am I to take away their religion?" And I love that quote. I think actually both men told me this now that I think about it. I'm getting an intuitive thumbs up, so yeah. So, if you saw people levitating everywhere and you were a devout practitioner of a certain religion or faith, that could give you an existential crisis. And if you believe levitation is demonic, that could have a similar, if not a psychotically inducing effect. So there's a readiness to see these things. And, even if I had today the ability to like snap my fingers and levitate fireballs and cats on command, which I probably do, I wouldn't just parade around it, and I would be responsible with it. And I think even if I did it, people wouldn't, see it or fully get it. At least not everybody. Obviously many would, but yeah.
You are right. There are people saying, I will offer $1 million to someone who can levitate right now, or he will disappear and appear somewhere else.
Well, that James Randi competition was closed. He got a lot of frauds, a lot of crackheads, but there are a lot of legit practitioners. And if you decline, I heard he declined to interview or declined to allow submissions of certain people who were known to be legit practitioners. So from what I heard, that thing was rigged.
Yes, but also someone at high vibration and high, ethic won't do that in a public setup just to prove himself that he can do it, or prove to the masses that he can do it. He will have that certain level of, as I said, ethics based on what he was told and taught not to do it.
Honestly and respectfully, I disagree as a blanket statement. I think most of the time, yes, but it is, there are reasons why it can be valuable. It can be extremely inspirational for people. If people are searching for proof that a higher reality exists, and seeing flashy magic, a term I like to use for this, is anchors in their mind and knowing that this stuff is real. I saw levitation and a materialization when I was 14, and that convinced me. And I had a pretty successful anti-bullying spell, which I evolved and posted on YouTube a while back, that convinced me this stuff was real. And every time I was doubting, I got a new one and I saw it. And that's, part of the 222 number. It's way more than that now. And seeing that helped me stay on the path. So now we get to the really funky scenario. It's not appropriate for the viewer. It is appropriate for the viewer. So if it's not appropriate, it shouldn't be done. If it is appropriate, then just to be really simple, there's two sources. One, the practitioner is aligned, and two, they're not. If the practitioner is aligned and it's appropriate, okay, great, show the Siddhis, show the flashy magic. If the practitioner is not aligned, but it's right for the group, that's a tricky scenario, because we like to think that anybody with advanced spiritual skill should always be spiritually mature. And the scandal stuff, while a lot of it I feel is legit, and my heart goes out to anybody seriously affected, if you have somebody with advanced manifestation and spiritual abilities, but they seem immature, egotistical, arrogant, like they have character flaws, like any random person, because they're a celebrity, will put the spotlight on the negative. B, that's also what the media does. But C, we might consider what they do as invalid, or we might make an association that, it was bad, that person shouldn't do that. But if that person's higher self, or maybe own internal self, or subconscious, whatever level, knows that they're, say, super arrogant, and that it's right to demonstrate their power because it is beneficial for people, and they are right in all the ways that means, and they do this, and they get ridiculed, and they get hunted down and torn up, and their past humanity is, emblazoned, and there's lawsuits and all this stuff. But it was right for people to see that because it helped people stay on the path, or it inspired people that they could be greater than what they thought they would be, or helped people learn how to heal themselves, anything related to that. I would say that that event is probably generally was a good event. But I feel that this takes a very highly mature view. And I personally feel that spiritual development should come first and demonstration should come second, because just like with martial arts, you could see a flashy teacher, but if he's flashy and his technique is poor, you don't want to develop the wrong habit. And I do also feel there's a counterpoint to what I shared, that if you have an arrogant yet powerful magician who displays their power, a display of power could synchronize with arrogance, and then you could get arrogant, power-hungry people seeking magical skills, and that's not good. Unless, karmically it is, and so we could go out forever with that pattern.
Yeah, there's so many facets to the same problem. So I understand your point of view. Thank you. Let's talk about the temples you want to build by 2041. How are you going to do that, and what's the purpose, and how that will affect humanity?
So in the last chapter of Magic is Real, it's chapter 13, called The Future of Magic, told in an epic wizard's voice, I think, on the Audible version. There's 3 temples. There's Thoth, Aphrodite, and Lakshmi. And those are before 2041, which is a founding date for Atlantis Reborn. Like the first interaction with like a shovel breaking ground is scheduled for that, in actually September 14th is what it feels like right now. So to not elaborate on the longest chapter of the book too much, I feel we need a center of the study and advancement and teaching of magical sciences appropriately. So Thoth is a theme and also a very powerful cosmic level consciousness, not putting any favoritism to any religious tradition. I'm just using names that are familiar archetypes, and I believe legit and beautiful and helpful and aligned beings. Aphrodite, because I feel our world is in the process of and needs a lot more of healing and evolution related to love and sexuality, done safely and properly, but helping people get to the level of maturity and comfortability and options and personal power that is right for them, that they choose, ethically speaking. And Lakshmi, we really need, I feel, to evolve in how we manage resources. It used to be about wealth and money and finance and global inequalities and people who want to live off the land. But the more I resonate with abundance frequencies, the more I, enjoy the beautiful energies of Lakshmi and many forms of interaction, the more I realize abundance is internal and external. It's way more than money. And by realize, I mean have an embodied sense, not just a mental knowing. And managing our resources is more than a stable climate and getting rid of poverty. Managing our resources, if we have a goal as a civilization to build a starship that can reach Andromeda, we should be able to do it or figure it out. We shouldn't have to lobby and compete with each other and have cyber warfare wars over toilet paper warehouses and petty squabbles like that. If we want to evolve our healing skills to the point where 1,000 people can be texted automatically through a system when one of those people sees their friend gets hit by a car while biking, and then all those people can distant heal at the same time, and the biker's skin will knit together in real time and they'll be perfectly healthy before the ambulance even arrives. To get to that level of skill and practice and resource management requires a lot of abundance. So I believe Lakshmi would help with that, and everything Lakshmi represents in whatever tradition, in whatever name, in whatever vocabulary.
And do you have locations selected for these temples?
I have a location for Atlantis. I've been told locations for the other ones. I believe Lakshmi will likely be in Los Angeles during a very powerful meditation, and she'll be first. During a very powerful connection with her, immediately after, I'm talking 3.5 minutes, maybe it was 3:33, but I don't want to seem like I'm making this stuff up. But like immediately after, it was definitely less than 5 minutes after. It might have been like seconds. I checked my phone. I got a call from a friend. My friend was starting a needed business in a fast-growing industry, and it seemed like he was going to grow with that significantly and hit about 20 million in revenue. And he talked about funding the Temple of Lakshmi, and he talked about a priestess from Bali who cared to do the same thing and support it in America. This woman had an amazing story and named her daughter Lakshmi, actually. And to get a phone call from somebody I knew offering to fund the development of something that the two of us hadn't talked about for 11 to 14 months was such a powerful universal sign that this is meant to be, and that this can, and I choose to believe, will be. So the other two temples, I have inklings, but I feel that Aphrodite might be the one we need to be the most careful with, because there's so many different viewpoints on those topics. So when it's right to announce more specific details, I'll release them. And occasionally I do in private chats when I get to know people and it's right to share with them a few things or see if they'd like to help.
Thank you. You mentioned Bali, and I know that you have a retreat, you organize a retreat in Bali. Why Bali? And tell us more about the retreat, what you are doing there.
Bali is a magical powerhouse. It is beautiful. There's a lot of kindness in the culture. I have a lot of friends there, and locally it's relatively inexpensive. So you can do a great retreat, and things like food and lodging aren't that can allow for a bit of a lower price given everything that comes together. It's also removed enough from where most people live that if you go somewhere for a major life change, you want to be able to anchor it. Watching this interview, doing an online class can be powerful, but not the same as going to a live event, and not the same as traveling to one outside the city where you live. Now, traveling to a different country that is pretty far away puts you away from all your normal behavioral triggers. And if you get a massive change, like I care to provide and offer in the retreats that I'm going to have to reschedule, but that I make available for people, if somebody wants to stay in Bali another couple of weeks and work remotely and really anchor in the new self that they unlocked, it is a much easier place of doing that than, say, a luxury hotel that's $300-400 a night, where a lot of types of big deal events and multi-day workshops are held. Not to say that those are bad environments. Of course, they're more accessible, especially if they're near a major city. But Bali feels right to me for a lot of those reasons.
Yeah, two of my previous guests also organize retreats in Bali, or at least they spend a lot of time there, and their experiences were just amazing. I'm interested to know which enlightened sages have influenced you, because you mentioned them several times in terms of enlightenment person, but which one influenced you a lot?
I work primarily with divine beings right now. Falco Tarasco of Damanhur, huge. Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Yogananda, Yukteswar. Merlin, I've worked with Merlin a fair bit. Thoth for sure, and Aphrodite and Athena and Krishna, and Apollo, and a bit of Hephaestus. If I ever had a issue with my phone, I would connect with Hephaestus, and it would more often than not fix itself much more quickly. Sending an essence of love to devices actually, I've seen helps too, which is great if they're malfunctioning. And there's a few more, but those are primary ones. I have worked with Christ a fair bit, and I've actually astral projected to a location where I believe, I feel I was interacting with Christ in an astral form. And it's really nice being able to access so many mentors, or some would prefer to say projections of my subconscious, but I feel the upgrades have always been there.
Oh, thank you. So we are approaching the end of the interview. It was amazing. What are your next projects?
So the workshops that I mentioned are the ones that are coming up next. So the series on abundance, both practical material steps to raising income and the esoteric spiritual elements of abundance, that's definitely coming up. I give a workshop series in astral projection that I'm going to make a lot more accessible. I plan to do the series on health. I have the regular one on magic. I'd say for this year and this current timeline, I'll be doing a lot more live events by Zoom and Facebook Lives. Once the quarantine ends, I hope to travel a lot more and give live workshops to a lot of different places there. I likely am going to be in a great book by that you'll hear about if you follow me, that will be coming out August 8th. And I'd like to release the next 3 books that I have, mostly final drafted by the end of the year, pending my publisher's thumbs up. So there might be a few other things in there, but those are the big ones.
Amazing schedule. And what can I say? We'll for sure follow you. We'll list all the details, how people can contact you in the description of this video. David, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been great. Honored to be of service.
And for my viewers, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell so you get updated on future videos. And until next time, love and gratitude. Thank you.